Hello my fellow nurses, in this video we'll be going over the Restoration Shaman. This video is mostly aimed at people who have never played Shaman, are a bit lost as to how the spec works in Dragonflight, or people just returning to the spec and want to know how it functions now. With that being said, let's get right into it. Restoration Shaman can be classed as a jack of all trades. It is a very interesting spec as it seems to have it all if you do decide to get a talent for it. It has a lot of healing cooldowns, really good healing when everyone is stacked, brings in natural bolus, and also has the shortest cooldown on the interrupt, which comes in handy when you have a team stack with range DPS. As of upsides, there are also downsides. It can only do one thing at a time really well, damage or heal. It has long cast time spells in general, lackluster DPS, and no damage reduction for the tank. With the requirements and healing increased in Dragonflight, Shaman falls a bit short due to its long cast times. Restoration Shaman from Shadowlands is much different and might not feel the same in Dragonflight, moving away from the Cloudburst and Vesper era and trying to get into an instant cast style of play will feel very weird compared to how it was before, with Primordial Wave, Nature's Swiftness, or Ancestral Guidance as some base spells for what we'll be focusing this season at least. In terms of talents, Shamans are pretty versatile. On the screen is what I feel worked best for me when making the guide, with some additional notes that I should mention. The new talent tree is relatively straightforward for us, picking up the things we had before and some other bonuses. We will also pick some more damage spells or utility which wasn't available before. Due to the nature of our talent tree, we will need to also make important choices. Before we had Frost Shock, Hex, Stranglethorn Totem, or Tremor Totem pretty much by default in our kit. With the new talent tree, we're forced to only get one or at best two of these utility spells if the situation calls for it. The specific talent point that goes into Frost Shock is what I mean by versatile point. It can go into all of the aforementioned spells if needed, and also into this new Poison Cleansing Totem seal down here, if again it's needed. For example, if the dungeon I'm about to run has a lot of fears in it, then Tremor would be better for the situation instead of Frost Shock, or if there is Explosive as an affix, then Frost Shock remains as it is a very good spell to take care of orbs. On the right side, the Restoration side, it becomes incredibly simple as we're only really adding Stormkeeper to what we already had before Dragonflight without really any special nodes needed to add. We're just choosing the basic Restoration spells. We pointed before that Restoration Shamans have long cast times, so we're looking at picking up Haste as our priority stat and Versatility as our second stat for durability, plus it also increases our damage and healing. These are in general the desired stats, but if you get an item with a higher item level, that should be used instead as it increases our intellect, which takes priority most of the time, if not all the time. The higher you go in key level, the more important these become as they will increase your survivability, allowing you to cast more spells and survive undodgeable damage inflicted upon you. Keep in mind that at the start of a season, or if you have a new character, it really doesn't matter what stats you have, just get the items, because these are just some things to keep in mind for when you need to start pushing higher keys. For Trinkets, it becomes a bit harder if you don't raid. If you have the luxury of raiding, then Broodkeeper's Promise and Whispering Incarnate Icon will probably be the best for you even if they're a lower item level, as Trinkets are usually used for what they do, not necessarily for stats. If you don't raid and just Mythic Plus, there are still alternatives. Voidbender's Shadow Gem and Alacrita's Alchemist Stone can work, but if you're gonna get the second one, then just get whatever equipped trinket you can get. Don't try to use trinkets because it's gonna feel a bit wonky. But at the start, you can use whatever trinket you have and try to work your way into getting these if possible, because luckily they aren't necessary to make the spec playable. Before I get into rotation specifics, Restoration Shaman is pretty flexible in this department, mostly requiring you to know what to press in a situation as it is a reactive healer, making your rotation more on the fly. The general consensus is that you need to know your cooldowns, a sentence for when your team takes a lot of damage and you need an immediate answer, Healing Tide Totem if there's rot damage, alongside Healing Stream Totem to go alongside it. Ancestor Guidance can be used alongside Stormkeeper to keep healing while doing damage, and last but not least, Spittling Totem, or for short SLT, is a very versatile spell as it can be used to stabilize your team, your tank, or to just simply help with spells that need to be tanked up front, as it reduces upcoming damage by 10% and shares damage evenly between people inside it. You also want to keep Earth Shield on your tank at all times, and preferably a Riptide as well. Speaking of Riptide, after using Riptide, you get a very nice passive from the talent Tidal Waves that boosts one of your healing spells. Healing Surge has increased critical strike, Chain Healing and Healing Wave have reduced cast times, so after you get more comfortable with Shaman, you will indirectly start using this more efficiently as you are already using it just naturally. In general, with Restoration Shaman, you want to try and heal with Riptides, Primordial Waves, and Healing Stream Totems, and use Healing Surges or Healing Waves only if things get a bit more serious. Due to its insanely long cast time, Chain Heal can be used with Nature's Swiftness to make it an instant cast, and if you just need to instantly heal everyone for a tiny bit. For very spicy moments, that's when you usually want to use at least a cooldown. Luckily with experience you will know which one and how many to use as explained earlier. Don't be scared to be very trigger happy with your cooldowns. That's realistically the only way you will learn and how to use them, even if you overspend or completely with them. Reactivity is something that comes with experience, and it's better to fail in lower keys than in higher ones when learning these. Healing Stream Totem should be done all the time, as it can be treated as a mini healing over time for your team, and indirectly will take the spot of your healing rain if you played Restoration Shaman before. The best way to heal, if possible, is to actually not heal by stopping the damage intake for your team with an in-cap totem or wind shear. So be on the lookout for using these spells. If you have no idea what to interrupt or stun, just use them all the time, and after a while you will learn when it was a bad idea to do that. Wisdom will come with time. If there's nothing to heal, you're better off doing damage yourself. Luckily, Restoration Shamans have a very simple and straightforward rotation. For single target, it's usually Flame Shock, into Lava Bursts, into Lightning Bolts, and if one of the two from earlier is available, just cast them. For multi-target, keep at least a Flame Shock up and spam Chain Lightning with Lava Bursts on the target or targets with Flame Shock on them, as it deals more damage to those. And that's pretty much for rotations. Basically, interrupt, heal, do some damage, and use your abilities, and sooner or later you will get the hang of it. I actually forgot to mention, don't forget about your Astral Shift. It's basically your wall and your defensive, and sometimes you can use your Astral Shift to not see yourself and put priority on your team. But my point is, just don't forget about your defensive, please. If the video helped you, hit that like button, res that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments below if I forgot something, since I'm pretty new to making these sort of guides. See you in the next one, guys.